Well, there we are. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Prep for Eternity Live. Hope you are doing well. Uh-oh, I didn't turn the music down here. Hold on just a second. There we go. Got the music turned down. We're waiting on everybody to come in. I'm wondering if the notification even went out. Perhaps many people are busy this evening. I don't know. Hope everybody's had a good day so far. I know it's been hot, rain coming and going. And hello, Eburn. Good to see you. Hope you are doing well out there in the heartland. I sure do. Hello, Christy. Hope you're doing well. We've had a lot of rain earlier in the week, then just a couple of days hot weather, and that's just the pattern how it is. I know up in Birmingham, which I'm, probably about 40 minutes south of Birmingham, they had some significant flooding the other day, and it was heavy flooding. And my mother called like at 5:45 in the morning, and I was getting up ready to go to work. I think it was yesterday morning, and it had flooded several places up there. I think they had 41 water rescues that they did. And the way Birmingham's built, it has so. Hey, Mary Catherine, it's got so much concrete on it that when it floods, it floods in many places. So, welcome tonight. We're going to be talking all things food preservation here shortly. And I know you'll look forward to that. We want to lean on y'all good folks for information as well. We got a lot of things to go through, some different stuff to talk about. And I'm glad my camera's back working this week for some reason. Although we made it through last week, we're glad that we're here this week and the camera's working. Man, I hope y'all have had a good week so far. We've been busy in the garden, and we are getting squash like crazy. As a matter of fact, Jennifer did a little freeze drying squash today, and I'll show this in a moment. This is some squash out of the garden that's freeze dried that she takes a brake bleeder and puts to it and pumps it, and it sucks the air out, and that's just one way that you can preserve food. Now, ideally, and I'll talk about this more in a little while, ideally for freeze-dried food, you want a oxygen absorber to suck the oxygen out. So we'll wait here a few minutes, let a few more people join. And I know that some of you have some pretty significant canning experience and food preservation experience, and that's what we want to lean on and talk about a little bit. And as you, yep, that's where we got the idea from there. Rain country style. She's sharp as a tack. And you know, no matter what's going on in the country, if you're trying to have any measure of self sufficiency, part of that self sufficiency is canning, food preserving of some kind. Whether it's freezing, whether it's freeze dryer, whatever. We're going to talk about all that here in a little while. And let me give a disclaimer. We are not experts. Jennifer has been canning. She's right here next to me, by the way, coaching me. She's been canning for about 4 years. And it is possible to learn. I see from here says, I'll be pressure canning for the first time this year, God willing and helping. And Eberm, you can do it. Good, you can do it. Jennifer had never done it before. No one had showed her. She learned on videos just started doing it and has been doing it about 4 years. So the information that we give you is from a amateur gardener food preserver. And it's best to consult with experts if you have further questions. That's my uh, recommendation. So we're going to show some things here, and I think we'll have a good time. Canning, freezing, dehydrating, freeze drying. We're going to talk about all that stuff. And because really what it comes down to is each person's situation is different. And you got to consider how much area you have, how much storage space you have, how many resources you have to put in to your canning, freeze drying, whatever the case is. And now, full disclosure, we are trying to sell our freeze dryer. We have not been successful so far. It is a high dollar item, but the reason we're selling it because we want to have a little more room so Jennifer can, and a little more room in general. But we're still using it until we sell it. And if we don't sell it, we'll just continue to use it. So, all right, well, let's go ahead and get started. We're 8 minutes in, and I think what we want to do, we just want to go through and talk about a couple of ideas when it comes to food preservation. And for us, the reason we have such a big garden this year is because we want to be able to put up as much food. And that term, for those of you that may not know, that term "put up" simply is a older expression that means putting the food, preserving the food, keeping the food year after year. And listen, people has been preserving food for thousands of years. And so the first thing, let's talk about eggs. We have chickens, and when the chickens are laying good, we have a pile of eggs. Now, y'all may know this, so if you do, just play along, but hopefully some of you may not know it. If you have chickens and you get eggs directly from your chickens, and if the eggs are generally clean, they don't have a lot of refuse on them, don't have a lot of stuff on them. In other words, if you're just getting them out of the chicken house and they're relatively clean, you can put them on your counter. And realistically, they could last from 3 or 4 weeks without anything. Hey, Tony and Chris, without anything. And some people would even say they'll last longer than that. We've kept them longer. We've had them up to 6 weeks, and they've been fine. But 2 to 3 weeks unwashed, and yeah, and not in the refrigerator. And the reason you don't want to wash them because when the chicken is making the egg, the chicken uh, puts around the egg something called a bloom. And what the bloom does, the bloom coats the egg and seals it up, kind of just seals it up, keeps bacteria out of it, etc. It's a natural process that God put in chickens and probably other birds too, to do to for the egg to be good. So the minute you take that egg and you wash it, you wash the bloom off of there. So what we do, we keep our eggs unwashed until we're ready to use them. And when we're ready to use them, then we wash them at that time, and then we use them. Now, if you have an egg that's got a lot of waste on it, really dirty, and you have to wash it, it needs to be put right in the refrigerator. And in the refrigerator, you know, I think eggs will last in the refrigerator 3 months. And some people would say it way more than that. Now, this is the thing. What you lose over the time, you lose flavor. So if you have an egg and you wash that egg, you put it in the refrigerator, that it will take, if you leave it 4 weeks, it's not going to taste as fresh. I've never noticed a difference, to be honest with you, but who's to say? But it's amazing. Somebody put the comment on here, God is amazing. And that's absolutely amazing how he made the egg. And that's exactly how he made it. Now, there's a test for those of you, and again, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here, but you can get a bowl of water and you can take an egg if you have doubts about it. And you can put the egg in the water, and if that egg floats, it's bad. If that egg floats, it's bad. You'll also be able to smell an odor. But that we've used the water test a number of times. Now that's one way, that you can do your eggs. There are other. There's videos out there. Of course, you can pickle eggs. You can put eggs in vinegar. Uh, you can put eggs. There was some other thing video I watched, but we've never done any of that. We generally keep the eggs unwashed, and they last. And we just use them. Yeah, that bloom protects those eggs. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I have Mary Catherine makes a point. We've not freeze dried any eggs, but I've seen it done. Hey, Brett, Sydney, we're talking all things for food preservation this evening. So that's eggs, and I tell you, as high as eggs are in the store, and they're going up. If you're able, get you a few chickens, take care of them, and they will really do good. Now, as we think through the uh, food preserving, there are a number of different things that you can do. And the biggest thing the two biggest things most people do is freeze, but also can. And right out of the gate, we want to recommend the Ball Complete Book of Home Preserving. I think we actually do. Wait, I can't remember. Readily available, the Ball Complete Book of Home Preserving. Now, I'm going to say this. In Jennifer's research, most things older are better. Most people today are saying don't utilize material when it comes to canning that is older than 10 to 15 years old. The reason is 10 years old, excuse me. The reason is the technology has changed. These are not expensive books, and I tell you, they're a wealth of information. There's a section here, the art and science of home food preservation, and it goes through. Hello, Fluffy Otter. It goes through and gives a whole bunch of stuff. Now, I've heard of that lime water preserving eggs. I've seen videos on that. What? Well, yeah, we've never done it. Now, when it comes to canning, there's some things that you want to make sure. And canning, if it's done correctly, gives you tremendous life to your food, and the nutrients stay fairly good. And I'm just going to go through a few notes that we've jotted down about canned food. Most canned foods will last 1 to 2 years, but for best quality, use your best judgment, right? For best quality. Now, the government recommends 18 months, I believe, right? All recommends 18 months. But now I will tell you, folks, and y'all probably know this, there are people that will eat stuff 3 and 4 years out. Not more than that, 5 years out. I'm telling you, we're eating green beans 2 years from 2 years ago now. So 1 to 2 years on your canned food. Use your best judgment. Smell test, uh, and yeah, if the seal's good and all that kind of stuff. That's where the Ball book, and really for canning, there's a lot of there's a lot of things we can learn, especially in the homestead and gardening, that is passed down from generations, and canning is one of them. But I will tell you, for your safety, especially if you're starting out, you need to get you a book such as a Ball book, if you need to follow the instructions. And if you follow the instructions, you will not have to worry about, yeah, just do what it says to the T. Because what happens, uh, the reason that canning works, and I was reading this, the reason that canning works is because the high temperature, it takes the microorganisms and the botulism, and it creates a seal to where the pressure on the outside is different than the pressure on the inside. And it seals down, y'all all know what a mason jar looks like. It seals down the lid so that botulism and those other bad microorganisms can't get in there. So that's why I tell you, follow the instructions. Yeah, yep, the temperatures, and I'm gonna go over that and get ahead of it. She's trying to jump ahead of me, but follow the ball book. Follow the book. I've got me some notes here. Now, two types of foods, two types of different ways to treat them. Number one, high acid foods. High acid foods, which would be tomatoes, fruits, jellies, pickles, etc., can be water bath. That is a different process than pressure canning. So again, high acid foods uh, can be water bath. Tomato, fruit jars, fruits, jellies, and pickles. Hello, Pastor Don. Good to see you. Good to see you. Huh? Yeah, and I'm going to show you the difference here. I'm reaching. This is one of Jennifer's water bath canners. You see this? And you'll notice it doesn't have a seal on it because the temperature in here does not, uh, it doesn't get up to where you have to hold the pressure. So you can see down in here, this all comes out. Many of you have these. This is for water bath canning. And again, water bath is for high acid fruits and vegetables. Yeah, and don't think, Jennifer makes a good point, don't think you have to go out and get some fancy, you can use a large pot and do the same thing. A lot of people do it that way. Now, your low acid, for which has to have pressure canning. And again, the book goes over to the T. The low acid for pressure canning, green beans. Now, I will tell you, one reason, a while ago I made a statement to not use books that's too old when it comes to canning. Used to, green beans used to be on the high acid list. And they got to thinking, yeah, they used to water bath can them. Well, they were moved to the low acid. If you look in this book, it shows green beans low acid. So low acid would be green beans, carrots, potatoes, corn, etc. Now, that is where that is where you use a pressure canner. And this is just one type of pressure canner. You'll see the latches here. Oh, this is the Presto. It's got I call it a jigger. I don't know, jiggler that goes on the top. Yep, a jiggler that goes on the top here. And I'm gonna tell you this. I think for most people that can, the pressure canner is probably the most intimidating because it has the potential, and that pressure is so much on the inside. But you see, for the low acid stuff, you have to get the pressure up there in order for it to kill the bacteria and to make the seal like it's supposed to make. Mary Catherine said not all tomatoes are high acidic, so you may need to add some citric acid to mason jars. That is true. Yeah, this book advises adding lemon juice to all tomatoes or citric acid. So everybody knows what a canning jar looks like. So this is a canning jar. There are different ones. Different people make different ones. This is a ball jar. You'll notice, and I don't have the ring on this one, the canning jar has three components. It has the jar, it's got the ring that sits on top of this, that when you are canning, you screw the ring on, and then after it's done what it's done, you remove it so it pops. Or it pops, then you take it off. And that way you know it's on there. So I will tell you that you can buy these in complete, just like this, but with the ring. Or you can buy just simply, I don't think the jars, I think the jars have the ring lids. I don't think it's sells just jars. But you can buy the lids and the rings because the lids do wear out after a while. Now, we're holding this, and I mentioned this a while ago. This is some squash that we freeze dried. And the reason we freeze dried it and put it in this jar is that we're currently out of the oxygen absorbers. So what we would do, we put it in this jar. This is squash. It was just picked the other day. We put it in this jar. We have a brake bleeder that we put on top, and we do the effect of a Mylar bag, pretty much. Suck the air out of it. And that's pretty much what it is. This is a vacuum seal, and these have been freeze dried. These squash for canning. Uh, Canning pretty much is one of those skills that you develop your flow and you get better. And I know it can be intimidating thinking about the water bath and thinking about the pressure canning, but folks, I'm going to tell you, I should have looked the book up to see what they were going for right now on Amazon. But if you don't have one of these, it would be in your interest to get a ball complete canning. And the nice things about this, like Pastor Don said, he found some stuff at his grandparents' house, I believe, and I think it was from the 80s. They decided not to eat it, but you can take those jars and clean those jars out and still use them. And folks, people has been canning for what, since the turn of the century or later. And actually, our modern canned foods that we utilize, the the green beans in a can, whatever you buy at the big box store, that philosophy came from home canning. I guarantee it came from home canning. So that's eggs and that's canning. Let's talk about frozen food. Besides canning, the second most popular way to preserve food is freezing. We have two smaller freezers, not large freezers. And generally for freezing, and the items will vary, you can get 6 to 12 months from frozen food. Like squash. Squash is really not, I mean, some people can squash, but to us it gets mushy. So we freeze squash or we will freeze dry it. Jennifer cuts it up, puts it in gallon bags. Do you blanch it? Yeah, yeah. So she blanched it. Blanching is a process of which you would put in water, boiling water, and then you put it in your freezer bags. And the good thing, like the rest about squash, is you can get it flat and you can lay it on top of each other. And we eat onions. I mean, we freeze onions. Uh, we freeze squash. Really, just about anything that you can freeze. Um, there are some stuff that doesn't work as good, and it does take electricity to operate, of course, the freezer. So, yeah, if you're going to freeze, because I have heard of people uh, losing significant amount of food because the power went out. So, if you're going to use freezer, have a generator scenario. The ball book, according to Jennifer, right now on Amazon is $20. Well worth your investment. Well worth. Eberm, I think you said you were going to try to can this year. Be well worth your investment. And there may even be a new one out. They generally keep up with it. Um, keep up with it pretty good. So we talked about eggs. We talked about frozen food. Uh, let's see. Let's talk about freeze dried and dehydrated food. Okay, so freeze dried. The things to consider with freeze dryers is this. There's several consideration, and we are talking as those who have had a lot of experience with making mistakes and getting better and so forth. Now, the process of freeze drying is simply what it says. You cut your vegetables, whatever they are, you put them on these racks, you put them in this freeze dryer, and we pre-freeze everything we do because that takes a step away from the actual freeze dryer. It still freezes it to a very, very low temperature, but it doesn't take as long. So what it does, it freezes it to a very low temperature, very low. What is it? Like -30 or something? It's like a -30. Don't quote me on that. But so it freezes it, and then it goes in, and it has a pump on it, an oil pump, and it goes in, and it pulls out the moisture. Yeah, it goes cold to hot, and in that process, sucks out the moisture. So the success of freeze dried foods depends on no moisture. The better you can get no moisture, the longer this gonna last. Now, out of all food preservation methods, freeze dried has the longest shelf life of about 20. It has the potential for 25, and it holds the most nutrition. Like what one thing we picked up on, we ate a few of these, and one thing that we noticed is typically, like if you were to just cut a squash and eat a piece raw, you may get just a touch of sweet, but not really. You're not going to really have a harsh sweet. These are sweet. I mean, these are sweet. Not sweet like chocolate, but it's sweet. Uh, 25 years, 25 years. And there's a lot of things you can freeze dry. You cannot freeze dry every single thing. Like you can't do peanut butter. You can't do honey. There are a number of things you can't do. You can't do butter. No oily type stuff because it'll never get the moisture out. But the downsides of freeze dryers, and there are some downsides, is cost. They're going to cost you 3 grand. They're going to cost you about $3,000. Ours, we paid, and I don't mind telling you what we paid a couple of years ago. We paid about 2816, like 2,800 a couple of years ago. We made the investment for one. Another downside is humidity has to be considered. You must consider your humidity level of where you're freeze drying because I'm telling you, if you don't get it in your Mylar bags and get that oxygen absorber in there quick enough and get it sealed up, and there's too much humidity and that moisture gets in there, it'll ruin it. Won't it? I mean, it'll ruin it. Also, you don't want to put your freeze dryer in a confined space. The reason is it is pumping out some heat. I'm talking about pumping out like we have it in our washroom, laundry room. We've got an air conditioning vent in there, but we still have to use the fan because the room is not that big. So that's some of the downsides. Plus, it's heavy. This is not one of them things that you're going to grab out of the closet and throw on the counter and use every once in a while. Wherever you put this baby, unless you put it on a rolling rack of some kind, because I think it's like no, I think it's pump. It's more like The freeze dryer is about 120 pounds, and the pump probably weighs about. I think the whole total is 160 pounds. I read. So that's something that once you put it there, it needs to be there. Christy makes a good point. At my age, I'm not worried about a 25-year shelf life. I can fully understand that. It's quite an investment. Now, would we go back and buy another one? Probably not. Uh, yeah, Jennifer makes a good point. In the long run, it's really not self-sustainable. You have to buy oil for the pump, unless you get the new oilless pump. You have to buy the Mylar bags or utilize these, and you have to buy the oxygen absorbers. And it takes power. So, you know, and I'll tell you the best recommendation I could think of is if you had a church or had a community of people that could chip, say you had 20 people could chip $100 in, whatever, I could see it be beneficial because then you could do a bunch at one time. And yeah, it would get a lot of use. You could put a lot of food up. I could see it very, very, very beneficial. But, the reason they got so popular is because some key YouTube people was, given freeze dryers as to promote them. And a lot of people got on the freeze dryer bandwagon, which I'm certainly not against it. And there's a lot of fear going on. So before you buy one, consider all those things I told you about. Dehydrate. Now, dehydrating is A pathways. We're talking all things food preservation. Dehydrating, and we have not a fancy dehydrator. Jennifer's had it for Senesco. She's had it for several years now, and it works fine. It's not fancy. I think it's 4 racks, 5 racks, and we did squash chips. Uh, there is a difference between the dehydrating and the freeze drying. The dehydrating does not get the same amount of moisture out, and it does not preserve the nutrient content as freeze drying does. But from a usability standpoint, it is pretty simple to use. Jennifer cuts up her stuff, puts it on the rack, puts it in there, turns it on. That's it. She uses hers mostly for her herbs, uh, and to dry up all her herbs to make. Like for instance, the other day she used it to make fig leaf tea and dehydrate fig leaf tea, and it's great for stuff like that. Works very well. I think you can get one of them things, if I'm not mistaken, $60, $70, and they're good to have. Again, the downside side is it uses electric. Now, yeah, and you got about a year shelf life because again, it goes down to that moisture level. And I just and it's the process, and I cannot explain the different process. Somebody on here may. But now, all these methods, with the exception of canning, are just about dependent on power. And technically, theoretically, hey Stringfield, that's the expert there. Theoretically, you could can. Hello, daughters. Farm Adventures with Annabeth. Technically, you could can without electricity. Technically, it might be a handle to do, but you could do it. Huh? You could do it on a gas stove, but even if you didn't have gas, you could build a fire. It'd be tricky, but it could happen. Strayfield, we're talking all things food preservation, and uh, as I was saying, our freeze dryer, we like doing it, but before anyone gets on the bandwagon to get you a freeze dryer, really consider what I told you. Consider the weight of the freeze dryer. Consider the space it's going to need. Consider the cost that it's going to cost you. Consider your humidity conditions. And I'm not saying they're not good to have. Pathways, we have a sun oven. Now I don't know if that's, and you can dehydrate in that as well. But we do have a sun oven. Uh, I guess that's what. Are you talking? Is that what you're talking about? Pathways. Brett makes a good point. You can salt cure and smoke meat. Yes, you can. And I wasn't even. I didn't even think about that. You could do a smoker. There's tons of videos. People, Deep South's got a video where Mr. Danny built a smokehouse, and you can definitely build a smokehouse to preserve meat. I mean, I was watching a place in Canada that does fancy hams, real fancy. I'm talking $high hams, and it's not a big deal what they do. They like put it in a clean environment, but it's not overly freezing or anything. They just hang it up and put salt and stuff on it. And pathways to stay in your car is a solar dehydrator. Yeah, you could. That's a good point. So that's why I'm here as community. We get these good. Yeah, yeah. Too hot a temperature can damage herbs. So Brett says he salt cured meat. I like salt cured meat. Uh, in the sun oven, and I didn't even think about the sun oven. The sun oven, and they're not that expensive. Great American Sun Oven, I think, so makes it all American. I think we bought one about 4 years ago. I got a couple hundred back then, and it works good. You can literally set that thing outside and cook a meal in it. But now, yeah, we've not cooked much meat. The downside to it is it's difficult to get crispy with such a cookie. Uh, but you can cook on it. I mean, you cook. I mean, Doug and Stacy, she I have no reason to doubt it. She puts a whole meal in that thing and just leaves it out there all day. Uh, but we do have one in the event. It does. It's very hard. But so again, the ball book. I want to highly recommend this. $20 on Amazon right now. And I know Eburn was saying he's going to get into canning soon. Get your ball book if you don't already have one. Uh, Plenty of videos available. The best thing to do is to practice and just do it. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, commercial gas convection oven. Yes, very good idea. Brett says I do salt cure smoked bacon, pork steaks. I just don't add the sodium nitrate. That's right, Mary Catherine. Oh, Eburn got one tonight. Outstanding. Mary Catherine says the only downside is having to move the solar over. That's true. You do have to, but it has this little sun indicator on it, and you look through the hole and the little sun coming through there, and you just kind of move it around. Uh, but listen, 4 years ago when Jennifer and I got into this, we jumped off in buddy head first and tried everything we could. Jennifer started canning. She started watching. She's been watching Springfield now for a couple of years, learned a lot of stuff off of Springfield, a lot of stuff off of Deep South, and just rain country, watching videos, learning, but doing it. And you can do it. You can do it. I'd love, and we're talking about it at our little church that I pastor. We're talking about having a canning class, and we got a gentleman in our church. I said this on a garden video the other day. We have a gentleman in our church, him and his brother does. They've got 500-foot rows of corn in their garden, and they garden like crazy. But they're going to do a canning class and we're going to try to invite some young folks from the community that may not know how to can, because I'm going to tell you, we didn't know, and there's a lot of people don't know this stuff. Pathway says she's got a friend who takes cookies in her car. She said, I bet it does smell great. Uh, that's right. Follow Teresa Springfield and learn how to forage for food. That's right. That's right. Just need to see it in person on good point. And there are infos and videos on building solar dehydrators. And because the point is, the more skills you can gain. And listen, we don't know what all this crazy country's going to do, and what we don't know what seeds is going to do. We don't know what exactly what the future holds. But if you can learn a skill, think of it this way: every skill you learn, you are that much closer to being a little more self-sufficient, and that much closer. You ain't got to have 50-acre homestead with, you know, 20 head of cattle, 20 head of sheep, all this and that. You learn you some skills, plant a little garden, and just get a little better. And the more skills you learn, the closer you are. The thing is, don't be intimidated by all that. I mean, it, you know, uh, you're gonna mess up. We messed up with our freeze dryer. Even now, and Jennifer's got the old hand at it now, so to speak, and we still mess up on the thing. Oh, Pathway says, Sydney, am going to be teaching mechanic class in Texas in a couple of weeks in person for another channel. Outstanding. Springfield said, do what you can do and keep learning. Brother Pastor Don says another good preservation idea is to grow stuff that just naturally lasts longer. Some pumpkins, that's a great idea too. Some pumpkins have a 1 year shelf life, like Seminole pumpkins. Outstanding idea. Cherokee tan. Man, what a good idea. Or uh, well, and for that matter, potatoes. Potatoes as long as you store them in a cool place, they have a pretty good shelf life. That's an outstanding idea, Don. Outstanding. Uh, we need to keep that on. But there's so many resources available that are free resources to be able to learn. And I mean, there's every kind of cannon video. You can learn just about everything you want to learn about stuff. The question is don't get intimidated. Don't think you got to keep up with anybody. You do what you do. Watermelon, spaghetti, squash, potatoes, put up right, we'll keep. Good ideas. Because whatever happens, if you and I can become just a little more self sufficient, we're doing good. Uh, Pastor Don said he read that you can leave sweet potatoes in the ground for years, but never tried it. The only problem with us, Pastor, and you may run into this being down there in Mississippi, is ants. But right, right, yeah. But I can see where that works. I mean, I can see that. Yeah, yeah, I can see that for sure. That's right, Teresa. You don't have, or Lee, whichever one. You don't have to have the expensive stuff to do it either. That's right. That's right, and that's why I tell people on our freeze dryer. Well, President, uh, who's the president? I always say this. No, right. Well, whenever we bought ours with our stimulus, so I always tell people the president and all my great 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 grandchildren bought us that freeze dryer because it's going to take them that long to pay that stimulus back. You know what I mean? But and that is on the expensive side. Yeah. And Jennifer makes a good point. The food we prepared with that freeze dryer was 25 years ago. That's an outstanding point, though. You don't have to go fancy. I'm telling you. I mean, you look around, and we was thinking about this when we was considering our garden, and God's got a way to where He's put He has put processes and things in place in the natural order of the earth that I believe if we can figure out how to follow them, we could cut out a great bit of our headache. Not all of it, because it's a sin-stained world. The world's cursed, there's no doubt. But now, you can go out in the woods, and in the middle of the woods, you find a blackberry bush that's got fruit on that blackberry bush. Now, somehow, that blackberry seed got in there and made a bush. And to me, I think we may make it complicated sometimes by trying to, and I know you got to have volume and you're trying to get enough food. I realize that, but we're really trying to figure out how we can do what would be the word? Would it be uh, uh, like a self the word? There's a word for it. Not self sufficient. Is it like permapasture? Is that what it is? Yeah. So what's that called? Permaculture. Food form. That's what I was. That's what I'm getting old, folks. I can't. We rooted 16 pig clippings. We did do that. Jennifer's making some. She made some pig tea. I don't think we drank it. And what I'm saying is that like I'll give you this word. Uh, we didn't grow up in the city exactly, but we certainly didn't grow up in what you would call the country. We grew up in the suburbs, I suppose you'd say. And so growing up in the suburbs, a spider killed that thing. Bugs, you killed. Snakes, you killed. And now, after being trying to be more natural, trying to learn more, we've learned to let some of that stuff go because that's God's way of taking care of stuff. The spiders, they eat the mosquitoes, they eat this and that, and even the cow killer ants eat certain stuff. So you know what I'm saying? That we're trying to learn and get a little better at that stuff. Chrissy says she's old enough to know stuff, but now I can't remember. Yeah, Chrissy, we're learning, but we forget too now. Swafford said he still got sweet potatoes, a couple spaghetti squash, glass. The most important thing is store potatoes, regular sweet, don't wash them and dry them well. Very good. Very good. Ours in our tub. We got a fancy shower in there that we don't use, so that's where we got our potatoes there in a cool, dry place. And yep, covered up, cool dry. Yeah. But and I'll tell you, folks, I'll be honest with you. I've uh, over the last couple of years, really this year more last year, I've really come to enjoy gardening with Jennifer outside. And she was very successful before I ever, because I was always the hole there. I put up the fence, I dug the hole, I did all the hard lifting. But I have taken more of an active investment, trying to invest in knowing so that I can enjoy, but also so that I may can help, someone down the road. That's right. God's world, that's a good point. Many leaders in permaculture are not Christians, but they borrow from our worldview without realizing it. God's world is designed for productivity. Pastor, we've got the Jadam book. I don't know if you're familiar with those. We went ahead and ordered a set, and Jadam is a gentleman over in Korea, and his big thing is natural gardening. And even though he is not, to my understanding, a believer, a lot of his methods come from uh, God's order of things. And he even says that a little bit, but he also talks about yin and yang and the balance. There is a balance, I understand, but you're exactly right. God's created this thing to know, to work out just like he planned it to work out. You know, when Adam and Eve fell, he done just what he wanted to do and made it just right to where man could still live. Had to put work in, don't have thorns, pests, etc. But God did not abandon man, and these processes all work together. And I think I think what's happened. This is just my opinion. I think we have been dumbed down over the last 100 years and have just bought into the fact that I can go to the store, I can get my cough medicine, I can get my pill, whatever it is. Nothing wrong with those things, but we can just go up there and get that. And it's created an environment where we really don't know how to live off. The knowledge is almost lost. It's not all the way gone, of course, but that's what we're having to try to do. We didn't know none of this stuff, and we're trying to learn, and we're trying to help others. Our children, our girls, uh, they're on the bandwagon. They're learning about things because we want to give skills to them that we didn't have. I didn't know how to do no garden when I was growing up. Now, some people had the privilege to be able to be, grow up in a family that gardened and their grandparents, but I didn't have any grandparents. Mine had long since passed away. So my experience with garden was my uncle used to take me and pay me $5 for about a 12-hour day, and I cut bean stalks when I was about 11 years old, worked me to death. That was my gardening experience. But the Lord is doing something in this community, and I think I'll say this, I think that if you put the work into it, and you put the work in, if you leave the harvest to the Lord, that He will bless the work. Because that's what it says in the book of Genesis. By the sweat of your brow, is what it says. So that's good stuff, folks. Good stuff. Y'all go ahead and get your prayer request. Pop your prayer request in. And we're going to pray for those before we get off here. Listen, I want to tell you, July the 10th, at the Cross Community is having a Bible conference. We're doing a little bit different than the God Fest. We're going to do a Bible conference, and the content of that Bible conference is the attributes of God. And we're taking a night to preach on one of the attributes of God. I've got a night open that I may have to preach twice, but I haven't filled that night yet for one of the attributes. But that'll be July the 10th through the 17th, and I hope you'll join us for that. Brett says convenience has made us dependent on stores and companies. That's a good point. Good point. Pathway says they are thankful for grandparents and parents to teach us. We both are from many generations of gardeners, ranchers, and farmers. Amen to that. What a blessing. That's what we're trying to start with us here. We didn't come from that tradition, but we want to start that tradition. Amen. What a testimony. Pastor Don, it's kind of crazy. Uh, Don, I pastor in but I'm not Southern Baptist. I'm more non-denominational, independent Baptist. On our At the Cross channel, we have uh, independent Baptist. We have a gentleman. I think all of us, except for one, are what we consider non-denominational Christ followers. Now, the ones that listen, on the other hand, we have Baptist. I don't think we have the Methodist. We have Baptist, Warren Lewis, Assembly of God, Brett Swafford's Church of God. So we have a whole plethora of different people that listen. And what we do, we come around, Jesus Christ crucified, and that's kind of what we preach. And then when we come to different doctrines in the scriptures, we preach through those doctrines. Some folks would agree, but we have a core group of doctrines that we hold to that are non-negotiable, and which are the blood of Christ. You must. Jesus is there's no other way to be saved other than Christ. We believe that all have sinned and come short of the glory of God, and that He is the only way. We believe the Bible is the Word of God without error. That doesn't mean that different translations may tweak this way and that way, but overall, the Word's there, and there's some more things. But that's pretty much what it. Warren considers himself a Baptist. Yeah, Baptist. Christian said Baptist. And it's a little, I know it sounds strange me saying I pastor a Southern Baptist church and not Southern Baptist. That's how it is. It is what it is. Oh, now listen, Don, buddy, we'll be together. We'll be together like two bike wheels on that. Uh, I consider myself reformed. One of our co-pastors out in Michigan, he is definitely reformed. We have and our church, the little church I pastor, it is what I would call reform. And just a brief word of testimony, Don. I came up through the Southern Baptist, and then I got out of the Southern Baptist, went the charismatic route until I came to different areas. And then I started listening about 15 years ago to John MacArthur. John MacArthur exposed me to the tenets of grace, if you will. And that's where I started on my reform journey. So that's kind of where I sit now. Springfield, July the 10th through the 17th on At the Cross Community Channel. At the Cross Community Channel. Um, you know, yeah, you can go there and hear various preachers. Don, there down there in Mississippi, I know it's not Southern Baptist, but isn't that where in Jackson, isn't that where one of the big Presbyterian seminaries is? Uh, yeah, I do too, Don. Hey, I'm gonna tell you, I don't man worship. We don't man worship, but I tell you, I love that brother. He has done more for my Christian walk, I believe, than any other man on the planet. And I'm gonna give you my humble opinion. Maybe overrated, but I believe John MacArthur is the greatest Bible expositor alive today. That's just me. I'm biased. I can't help it. Christy said her uncle's Methodist superintendent. Me and Cindy, yes, RTS. That's it. Now, Don, I've not been to seminary. One of our two of our co-preachers, as a matter of fact, Chicken Johnny has been to seminary, and Mike Hardy, who is Southern Baptist in Florida, he has been he went to Liberty. But I've not been to seminary. I want to, but I've been pastoring since, about 2001 or so. All of mine and Lee's families are Southern Baptist. Brett Cindy said, me and Cindy were raised Church of Christ, but through a long journey made it to the Church of God. Brett, I noticed there is a lot of Church of Christ in Tennessee, and there is, as well as in Alabama as well. That is Reformed Theological Seminary. You're right. Pastor Don, I had let me tell you this, I won't belabor the point, but I had a call today. The Master's Seminary has a ministry called Master's Fellowship. And what they do throughout the whole country, they have areas, and you may be familiar with this, but they have areas where men can come together kind of under the tutelage of the Master's Fellowship. And we had our first call today with a couple of pastors. They went for 3 of us on there, but I'm looking forward to that. I sure am. Pastor Don, you'll have to send me an email, and I'll have to give you a call. We could chat some more. Since we both pastor in Southern Baptist Church, I'd be interested to see what your take is with the current situation that's going on out there. Yes, but praise the Lord. There's the link to At the Cross. If you haven't joined, go over there, click the button. We have preaching of some fashion every single day. I do what's called 10 minutes in the Word, 5 days a week, every day at 5:30 Central Time. Jim does daily devotion every morning at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. And then we have preaching on Wednesday. I preach, Jim preaches. Then we have 3 preachers on Sunday, Bible reading, and Sunday school, a whole plethora of things. Yeah, it's just a vehicle of ministry. Because what I discovered, Pastor Don, is that there are a tremendous number of people that, for various reasons, don't go to church right now. Maybe they can't, maybe they don't have a church in their area, and we're trying to be a helpmate to them. Just a help to them. All right, post your prayer requests. We're going to get ready to get off here. We've been on an hour and 3 minutes, so we want to be mindful of your time, for sure. Hello, Wolfpack. What's going on there? Oh, we're taking prayer requests. What's going on here? And Mary Catherine, for those of you that don't know, has posted our prayer site, Prayer Works Ministry site, that you can go to and post your prayer requests, see prayer requests, see praise reports, and we would be glad to pray for you and help anything you need, for sure. And let me say this, we're still praying for Hannah. For those of you who don't know, Hannah Leak family out of Texas. Pastor Leak started a church there. Hannah Leak's 14 years old, having some tremendous health problems. Hey, well, glad to have you, Wolfpack. We're a prepping, gardening, Jesus loving channel of like minded people who are fellowshipping together. Good to have you. She is home, by the way. Some of you may have saw some of you may have saw the update. Hannah's home, and still got an uphill battle. They're supposed to be going to the Mayo Clinic. So that's an update on her. All right. Well, let's go ahead and pray. And I know we got many things to pray for. And if you have any others, just pop them in and we'll remember them and go from there. Let's pray. Father, we thank you this day. Thank you for blessing us. Lord, we praise you for your goodness, your grace, and your mercy. And Lord, we thank you for all our friends here tonight. Lord, we thank you give us the ability to learn skills to glorify you, Lord. Father, we come and lift up our sick who are afflicted with various things. Lord, for Hannah, for her health issues, for Adam, for his cancer, for Christy Betts, her health problems that she's been having, Lord, and other ones, Father. Lord, we lift up Pastor Don and his church. Lord, pray for your blessing. Lord, we pray for your bless every family on here. Lord, we lift our country up to you, and we'd ask, oh Lord, that we'll turn to you. We'll ask, oh Lord, that we'll go out and be the light of this world. Because we know the only way that's going to change is if people's hearts come to Christ. Lord, we thank you. Thank you that you supply our every need. We lift you up. Father, we know without you we're nothing. I ask your blessings on all these as we go in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, folks. Well, listen, we had a good time tonight. If I can do anything for you, please let me know. We're going to try to put some more videos out real soon on the prepping channel here. Again, if you've not checked out At the Cross, go check us out. Pastor Don, send me an email sometime, brother. Let me get your number and get to know you a little bit. I may get you to help us on our Bible conference we're having. But anyway, we love y'all. Remember, my family loves you. Jennifer loves you. Right next to you. More than that, Jesus loves you. Go and walk with him. Have a good night. Bye bye.